Good morning, everyone. It's great to be with you today, and good evening to our panelists from the US as well. A quick overview of today's agenda. We'll kick off with two presentations. First up, we'll have an overview of Cityworks, and we'll take a look at digital works management workflows. Then we'll hear direct from Cityworks and Esri user from Park City, Utah. We'll round out today's session with a Q&A, and again, I encourage you to post your questions as they come to mind. We've allocated plenty of time for a discussion. If we don't get to all the questions, we will be collating those within the week. So we're very pleased to welcome our presenters for today. Scott Barrell, from Public Utilities Analyst with Park City Municipal Corporation in Park City, Utah. Scott has a strong background in using GIS in the local government space, having worked with Salt Lake City Surveyor's Office and Wasatch Front Waste and Recycling District. But first up, we welcome Phil Mogavero, Director of International Business, Cityworks, a Trimble company. Phil heads up all development and support for the Cityworks product internationally and has been a strong advocate for GIS and asset management for over 20 years. Over to you, Phil.
Thanks, Doug. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for attending. It's good to be here. My name is Phil Mogavero. I am the Director of International Business for Cityworks, and I'm here to talk to you today about using geospatial technology for your operational work and maintenance management programs. Though I think the preference for us all is to be able to meet in person and network and ask and answer questions, but I'm really thrilled to come to you today virtually and discuss how Cityworks can streamline operations and work management. With our partnership with Esri Australia as our exclusive distributor for Cityworks in Australia, we created an optimal environment for collaboration and scalable solutions for organizational asset management. The talent and dedication of Esri Australia is really unsurpassed in the Australian market, and their capabilities to deliver and support the Cityworks application is the perfect fit. I'd also like to quickly introduce Michael Crome. Based out of Brisbane, Michael is one of Cityworks' newest employees, and working closely with him, we're dedicated to the support of Esri Australia and the Cityworks Trimble Water business in the region. Michael is certainly eager for the prospect of meeting you all when the opportunity should present itself. So first off, I must briefly disclose our safe harbor statement. The following is for informative purposes only and not intended to be incorporated into any contract or the likes. Cityworks is an enterprise works and maintenance management and permitting system that maximizes ArcGIS location intelligence for performing and planning work. It provides a platform that creates a system of action for users of many different business segments and industries to manage their workflow activities and permitting processes. Cityworks can and is utilized across a multitude of industries. Industries such as local governments, water and wastewater departments and utilities, public works agencies, transportation industries such as roads, highways, airports, and even rail, buildings and facilities, parks and recreation, including things such as greenways, golf courses, and even cemeteries, and also other various utilities such as gas and electric. And being built on top of the Esri platform makes it a true GIS-centric pure play application. So to describe what GIS-centric means, I have this slide here that shows the two separate distinct applications, Cityworks and ArcGIS, and they're inherently connected. Cityworks tracks all the work activities an organization is doing, while as the system of record, Esri's ArcGIS is the asset repository that this work is being tracked against. The assets are not maintained in the work management database like most other systems do. The operational activities tracked using Cityworks are directly tied to the assets from the Esri geodatabase. therefore effectively making this system of record, the Esri geodatabase, the asset repository for Cityworks. This provides Cityworks with all the geospatial capabilities Esri provides without having to use expensive syncing software and duplicate asset data tables that need to be maintained. Eliminating this data redundancy has its obvious benefits, but the geospatial intelligent capabilities Esri offers as part of your operational workflows creates efficiencies in tracking and maintaining your valuable assets. Full lifecycle asset management is important for any organization, as you all well know. From the birth of an asset, which is in its inception of the asset in planning and design, all the way through the installation and maintenance of that asset's entire life to its eventual replacement, your system should have the tools necessary to manage the whole process. This entire life cycle can be managed by the Cityworks system and provides for the three fundamental systems that make up a true system of action. A system of action is really made up of three fundamental systems: a system of engagement, a system of record, and a system of insight. With a system of engagement, an organization can report and collaborate from anywhere using any device, thus allowing to effectively engage with constituents. The system of engagement connects users to valuable, accurate data that is housed in a system of record. No matter where or when, the system of engagement provides the necessary entry point to engage with the system of record. As I just mentioned, the system of record is an extensible platform for data exchange and transactions and is what validates accuracy for an organization's assets, which is why the Esri geodatabase is the perfect solution for this. It allows an organization to have accurate, authoritative data. The system of record is crucial to be able to take action on proper maintenance activities for valuable assets. And with Esri's locational intelligence, this maintenance can and will extend and enhance usable life of an asset in an efficient and effective manner. A system of insight is needed to visualize and analyze data to improve efficiencies of the overall operation of an organization. The system of insight helps identify and prioritize work. For example, things like enhancing your operational efficiencies or being able to easily manage planning and development tasks, or even effectively prepare for emergency management type events. A system of insight can be used in real time, near time, or even for long-range planning to achieve improved work management and operational efficiencies. These three systems as a whole create a system of action. And the Cityworks approach supports this system of action by creating a GIS-centric AMS and permitting system that maximizes Esri's geospatial intelligence for performing and planning work. And because Cityworks embraces an open platform mindset, it enables the ability of integration to other applications. Because in reality, many applications can make important contributions to the system of action, such as the likes of IoT, for example. So to accomplish all this, Cityworks has two components to its system: AMS and PLL. First, as we see here on this slide, is the Cityworks Asset Management System, otherwise known as AMS. With Cityworks AMS, there are four main components. First is the ability for public inquiry or notification through what is called a service request. The service request provides the ability to gather and track information related to any problems or requests for service and identify its location. The second component is inspections. This gives the user the ability to identify assets, observe and report, review and schedule, or dispatch crews for further investigation or work if needed. The third is work order. Through the Cityworks work order, action can be taken to complete the work needed and record the work information such as supervisor, dates, the work performed, labor, material, and equipment costs, or other items that may need to be tracked as part of completing that work activity. The fourth component of Cityworks AMS is reporting capabilities. Cityworks provides the ability to create cumulative reports of where, when, and how much is spent for further analysis. These reports can help determine where we can expect further issues and follow-up activities to provide better overall health of your assets. Cityworks Permitting, Licensing, and Land, also known as PLL, is an application that can track the permitting process from start to end. Broken into four main components, the first is permit application, which includes a public access portal and an e-commerce system to take information from the public, such as residential and commercial construction permits or right-of-way permits, or even water and sewer permits and land development permits. The second component is permit issuance. This includes plan review and comments, zoning, engineering, and building code compliance, and the fee calculation and payments necessary to complete the process. The third component is inspections. PLL has the ability to have inspection requests and checklists for code compliance and occupancy. This includes tools for mobile workforce planning and routing as well. The fourth and final is reporting functionality. This will improve customer service, streamline internal processes, and provide public transparency, all through a geospatial context to better visualize the data. As I described earlier, being a GIS-centric application allows Cityworks to be utilized across many different industries and business segments. And all of these diverse organizations have embarked on a digital transformation journey. Different organizations start at different spots along the way, but no matter where they are in this journey, GIS is critical and a foundational aspect for them all. It allows a natural progression using locational intelligence to tackle the many operational endeavors along the way. This digital transformation journey ultimately leads to intelligent asset management. Having GIS as the foundation of an intelligent digital transformation and allows for Cityworks to directly ingest this intelligent data to enable seamless workflows. It also effectively connects physical assets to bring together operational and business systems, along with the likes of IoT, for a complete vision of an organization's infrastructure. Predictive intelligence is accomplished by Cityworks through the ArcGIS by combining this authoritative asset data with the business process applications to provide results for collaboration and analysis. Using a system such as Cityworks on top of the Esri stack reduces data silos and the need for onerous applications, alongside with providing the capability to integrate across multiple business systems to complete an overall asset strategy. So let's briefly take a look at some of the tools the Cityworks application offers and how they work. Cityworks Respond is an HTML5 application built on a responsive design framework that enables it to be utilized on any device. Its interface is clean, intuitive, reactive, and its screen size will render to the optimal space your device allows. Respond provides tools to manage customer inquiries, work orders, and inspections alongside a dynamic map to provide for an optimal and effective user experience to accomplish day-to-day operations. Let's take a quick look at the interface. So here we can see we fully support Esri single sign-on capabilities. And the first thing, it takes you to a configured user-defined inbox. So this is a respond interface, and you can configure whatever you want to see in this dashboard view. Here we're looking at all the service requests I have coming in, from requested to in progress to completed. I have other dashboards set up. Here's my work order dash that shows me all my requested, open, and in progress and completed work orders. And you can see the tables and charts are interactive. So as you hover over them, it shows you, and those are actually selectable, so you can open them up. And you can see that the Esri map is always available and part of the application. So as I slide it into view here, notice the responsiveness of the application and how it renders to the appropriate size of the screen. And that doesn't matter no matter what device you're using. So here I just selected a work order. In this case, a flush system, a flush main work order, flush a hydrant work order. And you can see that it locates it on the map because when this work order was created, and this is one that was already existing in the system, that it was geolocated and attached to the asset in the GIS. And as you go through the work order form, you can see the different fields that you can change, all part of the configuration. The status you can change here being changed in progress, changing the priority to high or medium high. The data fields here, who requests it, who the supervisor is, all those can be populated, pre-configured, however you want as part of the implementation of the system. We have fields for projected start and finish dates and actual start and finish dates. And as these are populated, these then can become searchable and used in queries or reporting, and even used as part of KPIs to see how long it may have taken to accomplish work from when it was projected to when it was actually finished. You see here we can add comments, and the comments will be time and date stamped and logged for who submitted the comments. We have details to allow you to link this work order to a specific project, an account, an existing contract you may have, or even a contractor. And then anything in this work order, including all the labor, material, and equipment costs that are associated with it, can roll up into the reporting for those details. So here we see how we can add some cost to the work order. So if you had a crew, and we have all these crews kind of pre-configured, so they're easily selectable to bring into a work order. So I selected my water flush crew. I'm adding a couple of hours for each of the individuals that was on the job. We'll add some equipment that we used. And if there's any costs associated with running this equipment, they'll be added to the work order. Same with material. We have an application, a warehouse manager called Storeroom, that tracks the stock that you have on hand. And as you pull in material into your work order, it will deduct from that overall stock to keep your inventory manager aware of what's being used and where it's going. And then it adds those costs to the work order, which then ties it back to the asset in the GIS. So now we're maintaining a historical record of the cost we're spending on maintaining this particular asset. You'll see we have the location, XY location, because this work order is tied to the asset in the GIS. It does pull in an XY coordinate. Here are the assets, the view of the assets right within the Cityworks work order table. And you see as I select them, they highlight within the GIS, the ArcGIS map, to show you where those are located. So that's, and then there's the work cycle. So we have the ability to put work on a cyclical basis. So you create the work order once, and if it's a preventative maintenance type work activity, you can put it on a cycle, an interval, whatever that interval may be. In this case, we're putting it once a year to start after the actual finish date. So once this work order is completed, a year from that date, this work order will regenerate itself and be submitted to the appropriate parties for a flushing again. We also have custom fields that can be created and put in the work order to track any information that you might want to configure. And these custom fields then become searchable and reportable as well. So it can account for for things that might be very unique to this particular work template. So that's a really quick and brief overview on the Respond application. There's really a lot more to it, but we'd be more than happy to show you more if anybody wants to see more of it at a later date. The next I want to talk about is our mobile apps. Okay, our mobile native apps for iOS and Android offer a lightweight, easy, and convenient way to handle your workflows in the field. And if you have no network connectivity, no problem. Our mobile apps operate in a disconnected environment to assure you never lose your data or the ability to effectively track your work activities while in the field. So let me run this video real quick. This is only about a 2-minute segment of our mobile app. You can see here that when you log into the system, it gives you kind of a snapshot of all the work activities you have. You can also view it in an inbox view. So if you rather see a tabular view of the data, you can view it. And these are all my work orders. You can see the service requests. Here are the inspections. And if I go back to the map, these are all the work assignments that I have assigned to me. And as I said, the app is designed to be very lightweight and user-friendly. You'll see these little yellow icons are my service requests I need to handle. The blue icons are my inspections that I need to do. And the red icons are my work orders. So we'll take a look at work orders. These are actually the ones I just created in Respond. There's that flush system work order attached to my hydrant. And I did intentionally the same work order just to show you the difference in the interface and the fields available for the field mobile app. And everything is touchscreen enabled. So you tap on a data field, you can change it by checking the boxes or tapping on whatever the field is. There's the actual start and finish dates. You can change those, add them. We have instructions. So if there were any instructions to look for, they would be there. We also have the assets, what assets are attached to this particular work. And you can do work and assign to a specific asset if you like. We have the labor, material, and equipment cost that you can add. Here you see those 4 crew members that were already added, but if I wanted to add more, I can do so by selecting the employees and adding those hours. Same with material and equipment. Here I'm looking at the material and you see those safety glasses that I added earlier are there. And then we have tasks. If there was any tasks as part of this workflow, they would show up in that dialog. Again, the projects, if you wanted to associate with this with a specific project that you're working on that might have multiple work orders, that can be added there as well. And then, of course, the custom fields and the ability to add attachments and view those attachments if needed. So you can add attachments in the field by either taking a picture and adding that attachment or viewing attachments that might already exist. Okay. So in every organization, analytics are pretty important to one extent or another. With Cityworks, you can take full advantage of Operation Dashboard for ArcGIS by providing a view of Cityworks operational data for a great look into the overall operational awareness. Cityworks can also leverage ArcGIS Insights to provide analytics and visualization tools to look at historic data and trends to support decision-making and risk prioritization. Let's take a quick peek at how this works. So here we have workbook pages and cards that we set up that mines a great deal of historic information from the Cityworks database. These templates allow organizations to mine their data to use this information for in-depth analysis. This first example shows our work order dashboard. As we pull in the work order table, you can see in the GIS that we've enabled locations. So there's the XY coordinates on the map that shows on the map. And in this map, we can see all our work orders over the past few years. And as we select something on the map, we'll see a change in highlight in the tables and the other charts, and even on our heat map. Or if we select something from one of the cards, in this example, flushing water main, we'll see that highlight on the map. I can also see it on the heat map. And we can see this data on the chord chart. And as we make that chord chart a little bigger, we can see year over year the number of flushing water mains that have been performed. Other analysis can be performed, such as work orders by supervisor can be seen and selected. Also, information available to view our work orders by categories or by bar chart. And this can be changed to any other type of charts if preferred, such as a line graph in this case. We also have a tab for equipment, labor, and material, and those costs accumulate in work orders over time, and all that information can be seen on the map. And then taking a look at our callers tab, we can see information on callers and when calls are coming in, along with looking at who is taking the calls and the volume of calls that are coming in. And if you'd like to compare your preventative maintenance activities to that of your reactive work orders, we have proactive versus reactive work order tab with cards that show all of them together or on separate cards on the map. And in addition, we have a service request tab. That we can see here to monitor and follow your service request activities as well, along with templates for inspections and of course the ability to create any of your own cards or tabs as well. So here is the Esri Ops Dash pulling in Cityworks data. This one happens to be for sanitary sewer collection. And as you can see, that it's an interactive dashboard. We have some charts that we built for the type, organized by type and priority. And here, if I select on looking at all my high priority work, that the map changes and shows me the location, how many of those I have, how much expenditures, how many of them are past due. And then I can take a look at, in this case, how many jetting work orders we have, and we see we have 9 of them due, how much we spent on that. 1 of them is past due. This is another way to look at the data. And then we could take a look at, status in the charts we have built. We have a chart for assigned work orders, so I can take a look at a particular employee, select that, see where their work is going on, how much we've expended so far on those work orders, how many are past due. I can select any of those works and actually take a look at the details, a snapshot of the details for that work and what's going on. So it's a really nice tool to be able to get an overall operational awareness of what's going on, and they're very configurable to pull in Cityworks data. Okay, let's talk about risk strategy. Cityworks has a tool called Operational Insights, which provides built-in analytics to configure, calculate, and assess an organization's business risk exposure. Factors such as asset age, material, historic inspection and repair activities, and key performance indicators captured through sensors and stored in the GIS can prioritize asset repair activities and perform more expansive monitoring. And all in all, enrich analysis with asset replacement cost data to support capital improvement planning. While the app configuration and its use are intuitive, the key is the preparation of your organization's asset attributes to support the asset risk strategy. So let's take a look. So here we'll take a quick look at the setup and configuration of an asset strategy as it relates to pavement condition and maintenance scenario. First is the GIS setup, and the main takeaway here is the ability to map the scores generated in Operational Insights back to your GIS attributes. By writing the scores back to the GIS, this opens the door to the rest of the platform, such as furthering GIS asset searches. Meanwhile, the validation tool is the first step to check whether there are any assets with duplicate or missing unique IDs, which is crucial before proceeding to configure or calculate strategies. Next is the asset strategy setup. This is where the risk strategy is configured per asset type. You have risk factors, which is where the GIS attributes are added and weights are adjusted if multiple factors are configured. Then you have the risk factor, the factor ratings, where the actual values and the attributes are configured by ranges, and any numeric score can be used as a rating or weight. Then there's the maintenance strategy, and this is part of the app that actually looks into the Cityworks database by searching the historic work orders. And the user has the option to configure proactive or reactive templates. Proactive configures the interval of how often the PM work should be done, and different weights can be added. The app will go into the database and check whether each asset has met the configured level of service, then returns two scores, underperformed and overperformed. Underperformed maintenance is a score on whether the asset is being under-maintained or not meeting the basic level of service, and overperformed is a score on whether the asset is being over-maintained. Reactive configures a threshold or maximum number of the work orders that will be allowed in this asset's lifetime. The app will go into the database and see how many work orders have been done against this asset in relation to the configuration, which produces the overall reactive maintenance score. The user can name the overall calculation and grabs the asset maintenance strategy, then runs the calculation. Also, this page is where the scores can be written back to the GIS if the user has mapped them in the GIS setup page. By selecting the desired calculation, the dashboard shows the charts that display the distributed scores such as probability of failure, consequence of failure, and business risk exposure. If a maintenance strategy was added to the calculation, those scores also displaying, including the relationship between the risk and maintenance scores. A column can be selected and highlighted on the map to display the assets, and the follow-up work activities can be created within the map. Notice the difference between the probability of failure and the business risk exposure distributions. If a user had only accounted for probability of failure factors, such as condition, there are over 300 assets on the higher end. But after accounting for consequence of failure, the highest business risk assets are only about 10. Therefore, you can target those assets and be more strategic about your investments. So I know that was a lot with the asset risk strategy, but I wanted to show you that to give you an idea of some of the capabilities that we offer in that arena. I'd also like to briefly mention Cityworks IoT. This is the integration of 3 powerful platforms, Cityworks, Trimble Unity, and ArcGIS, to create a unique and comprehensive digital platform with real-time asset intelligence using efficient workflows and analytics to automate the way utilities prioritize infrastructure maintenance and construction investments. This solution initiates with Trimble Telog recorders in the field capturing sensor data, which is visualized and reviewed in Unity. Based on this information, activities are created in Cityworks for field assessment and repairs. Then, historical activities from the sensor data are visualized into Esri's tools for location awareness, data sharing, and analytics. The fully integrated solution provides a more automated process for improved infrastructure performance, increased productivity, and better return on investment associated with infrastructure construction and overall better and efficient operational awareness. So with that, I'd like to thank you all again for your time and attention. As you've seen, these tools have really paved the way for an extensive and tremendous partner and user base. As such, our user community and the Cityworks ecosystem is strong and active with a plethora of user case studies. As an Esri Platinum partner, Cityworks' global presence is forever growing, and our customer success rate is at the top of our priority list. As you can see here, we go to great lengths to assure successful solutions for all our clients. If you'd like to see more on the many different ways Cityworks is being used, feel free to check out the Cityworks YouTube channel. You can find an abundance of videos on how clients are using Cityworks for their work and asset management strategies. Or even check us out at the virtual Esri UC coming up in a couple weeks. We'll have a virtual booth there. I think it's number 117. But also feel free to reach out to your local Esri rep to help set up a more personalized demonstration if desired. So these videos and websites are all great, but there's really nothing better than the real thing. So with that, it's my pleasure to introduce a terrific client and an all-around great guy, Scott Barrell. Scott is a GIS programmer for Park City Utilities and a graduate of the University of Utah with a bachelor's in geography. He's worked for multiple local government entities in the region and does mapping and GIS volunteer work for a local nonprofit conservation group as well. He'll be presenting, not to steal too much of his thunder, he'll be presenting today on how Park City Utilities employs Cityworks and ArcGIS for their vertical asset program. Scott, thanks for being here and welcome.
Hi, hello. Hello, everyone. Like what Phil said, I would really like to be presenting this to you guys in person, but I'm really excited. Regardless, I'm really excited to be here to talk to you guys today. So, my name is Scott Barrell, and I'm the GIS Programmer Analyst for Park City Public Utilities. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about vertical assets, what they are, and why Park City needed to implement them. Going to briefly talk about how we set up our vertical asset program, and let's see here. There we go. How we set up our program, and then how we use vertical assets with Cityworks. So really quick, just to give an idea of where Park City is. Here is North America, shown on Google Earth, And right there is the state of Utah. There it is, okay, the state of Utah right there. If we take a closer look into Utah, highlighted by this white box that's about to pop up is the Wasatch Mountain Range, or what we call the Wasatch Front. And if we zoom in a little further, we can then find Park City. So Park City is we're a small winter and summer resort town located in the Wasatch Mountains. We have ski resorts, mountain biking, film festivals, and lots of other fun stuff. And we're located about 45 minutes away from Salt Lake City, Utah. As a public utility, we have several challenges. Some of them are that we have a relatively small population of around 8,000 regular residents, but we have a surge in water demand during the winter, and we have to provide water to around 40,000 people during the winter who are staying in Park City. Being located in the mountains, we have a couple of thousand vertical feet between our highest and lowest points in our service area. And yeah, the rest of those items just kind of illustrate that although we're a somewhat small municipality, we have a somewhat complex water system. Okay, so just in general, our organization has a pretty decent GIS program when it comes to horizontal assets or horizontal data. And this includes standard GIS data like points, lines, and polygons. These things represent like pipelines, meters, hydrants, water valves, the standard GIS data stuff. And our pump stations, like you can see here, have all been populated with the horizontal GIS data in like a schematic-like kind of way. And our original Cityworks program, like an AMS, an asset management system of work orders, inspections, everything like that, was initially based off of these horizontal features. However, our GIS capability hit a total wall with our water treatment plants, which we have 2 of them, and we're currently building a 3rd. As you can see, the pipes and the horizontal data, it just stops right at the treatment plant, and we haven't even really tried to map out the insides of these facilities just because they're really complex, and they're much more complex than the pump stations are. Here's a room. Oh, there it goes. Here's a room in one of our treatment plants, and yeah, as you can see, the pipes and everything, the assets, they're going up and down every direction, crammed on top of each other and stacked. Yeah, just stacked all on top of each other. And there's so much going on that if you tried to draw or map these assets like we did for the pump stations, it'd be really illegible and really difficult to navigate through, especially if you're, interacting with it with something like an ArcMap. Here is another room showing a membrane rack, and there's actually 5 of them. And they're just crammed with loads of really small assets, and some of them are the size of like a deck of cards. So it would be really hard to properly represent them with points or other, standard GIS data on a map. Long story short, we had absolutely no assets of our water treatment plants inventoried in GIS, which our treatment team, they may have had some inventory data stored somewhere else, but it wasn't in a centralized official place, and certainly it wasn't. It was nothing that we could integrate into like Cityworks, which means we weren't doing any routine work activity or any of these things on the treatment assets as well. So a couple of years ago, we decided to remedy this by launching a vertical asset program. So really quickly, just a quick recap for those of you who might not know what vertical assets are. Vertical assets are assets with multiple components, or they could be components themselves. They're typically stored, or there's typically, but not always, inside of facilities and sometimes referred to as above ground assets. They're stacked directly on top of each other or configured in such a way that makes them not easily represented with standard GIS data or on a 2-dimensional map. These assets are records in object tables or tables in a database with relationships to other tables, groups of tables, or features in some form of a database structure. And although vertical assets lend themselves to complex facilities and data, they can also represent simpler data as well. All right, so the first step of kind of starting this process is to set up the map or the main layer, which we're going to start from, and determine the geographic areas we want to divide the assets or data into. Typically, you would start with a point or a polygon feature. Polygons are good for encompassing large areas like rooms or buildings, and points are really good for smaller, more granular features. There can be things like pump assemblies or control panels, and if that's where you wanted to start. And Park City started with the water facilities polygon, which you can see up here. And pump stations have, that's on the left, they have fewer assets and they're okay being represented by just one polygon. But the treatment plants, conversely, they have many more assets and they're much better suited to be broken up into kind of like different areas or groups into multiple polygons pushed together. And this is kind of what we came up with. We divided the whole treatment, both of our treatment plants into multiple polygons that we call rooms. And some of these polygons actually represent rooms, physical rooms, but some of them are just kind of process areas. Like that could be like there's a really big room, but we divided that into the different process areas or themed areas of like the treatment plant. Okay, so that was the first step. The next step is deciding like what data we wanted to capture and building out the database structure. So, we sat down and we created about 30 tables of all of the asset types that we wanted to capture, and we organized them into groups. We call these groups systems. And we then created the system tables that kind of reflected the information on how these object tables are grouped. And with that, with the water facilities polygon layer, we were able to start building our database structure. Starting at the top with our water facilities polygon layer, and yeah, this could be a point layer, this could be another kind of, any sort of layer you want. We then related this to the intermediate layer, that systems level, and there aren't any assets in this level. It just kind of helps organize the database or organize the object tables. So from here, we then related it to the final level, the groups of object tables, and this is where all of our assets are stored. So just want to mention that this is how we set our database structure up, and there's so many different ways you can set up a database with fewer or more levels of complexity. Park City has a somewhat complex level system, but other people might, other organizations that have much more complex facilities might need a much more complex database structure. But there's no one right way to do this, but it also is a very incredibly important step. So I don't have a ton of time to talk about everything, obviously, but I just wanted to mention that we collected and populated this database through Collector. And it's like a mobile app, and all I have to say is that the database structure worked well in it, and everything kind of worked well. So this is how we populated and collected the assets. All right, so now let's get into it. How do our vertical assets and database structure look in Cityworks? So here is one of our treatment plants, and as you can see, I've selected the chemical room. When you click on it and expand it, this window in Cityworks pops up. You can see highlighted right there is the polygon, and in this case, it's the chemical room. Here are the systems or groups of tables related to the chemical room, and if we want to expand one of the systems, we say like the instrumentation system right there, we click on it, and now the object tables, which are now highlighted in yellow, and any assets associated to the chemical room are shown. So see the two object tables right there, and all of the related assets to the chemical room are kind of displayed. And oh, this whole drop down is called an asset hierarchy. And what's really more impressive here is what isn't being shown, and that's the rest of the assets in those tables. we have around 2,000 assets collected for this treatment plant, and being able to instantly sort and find the data by location it's a really like effective way for navigating through all of the data. Okay, so here is another one of our pump stations represented with the horizontal data, as you can see, and in there are about 20 or so assets. There's valves, pumps, PRVs, airvacs, some surge tanks. And here is the same pump station with every system and object table expanded. So the vertical asset program has enabled us to capture way more information than we could have ever before with just the horizontal data. And now we have about 100 or so assets inventoried for this pump station. This slide is also an example of why we created the database structure the way we did. If we didn't have that systems level or like that intermediate level in our database, the dropdown or this asset hierarchy would look something like this. And there's sort of a lot here. And just to find one of the assets, it might take a little bit to look through there. And yeah, and this is just a pump station. So if you can imagine trying to find one of the more heavily populated polygons, but so we found that having that systems level made things much more organized and easier to like quickly navigate through the database and find the assets for like work activity and stuff. All right, so quick recap. In the past, we could only create work orders and inspections from Cityworks in smaller facilities that had these horizontal assets populated. And we would select the features, like you could see a pump is selected right there. And that's where we would start the process. But now, when we're creating Cityworks work activity within a facility, we do not do this. Instead, we select the polygon, as you can see there, navigate through the asset hierarchy, and find the assets in this dropdown and create the Cityworks work orders and inspections from there. So that's how our vertical assets look in Cityworks. Now I'm just going to quickly talk about what we're doing with the vertical assets, and here are some of the groups in our department that use Cityworks based off of our vertical assets. Starting with the distribution water group, here is the list of work activities that all use vertical assets on the pump stations and PRVs, and they do things like they work on motors, valves, daily rounds, skate equipment, things like that. And here is a quick example of a distribution inbox for the pump and motor maintenance inspections. And yeah, pretty straightforward. Those are inspections for pump motors, and they are based off of, again, the assets in the database through that asset hierarchy. Now we're going to move on to the water treatment group. Again, here's a list of the work activity the treatment group does, and we're off to a pretty good start. We estimate that we only have about a quarter of the way of the work activities that we want to be doing. But that being said, those first two work activities, the instrument calibration and instrument verification work orders, are a really important they're really important, like, or big milestone that consists of about like 100 work orders that are based on really critical assets, and we're now capturing this in Cityworks. So they probably consist about 80% of the treatment group's work. So we've had a pretty big success with the treatment group as well. Here is just a quick screenshot of the treatment manager dashboard in Cityworks. So we have some dashboards in Cityworks, and this one is for kind of like a work management tool that the treatment manager will receive these pending cycled work activities and then assign them to various employees and people. And this is kind of how they manage. And the top part is sort of like the pending unassigned work orders, and below it's sort of the closed work orders, and it's closed by like type and employee and things like that. Okay. So really quick, just a quick summary of kind of our situation here. Like, we had no way to represent or inventory any assets in our treatment plants in GIS. And we were unable to do any routine maintenance work orders in Cityworks. So the solution, like I talked about, was we developed our vertical asset program through establishing or building the database and configuring the water facilities polygon. And then we were able to base the Cityworks program off of those vertical assets. So taking a quick step back, let's look at some of the successes we've had with this program so far. First and foremost, the biggest achievement, I would say, and I think I've said this a few times, but it's enabled us to represent and capture inventory data of our treatment plants. And specifically, it was really important to get the critical assets, some very important like analyzers and things like that, and pumps into one centralized, organized GIS database. And yeah, and like inventorying the data is not just enough. It's also really important to store it in an organized and effective database where it's easy to navigate and find the assets like really easily. This effort has also expanded the GIS program to our treatment department and got a lot more of the treatment operators involved in GIS, which they hadn't really been involved with before. And on top of all this, we are a small municipality and we did this all with existing resources. We didn't have to purchase additional licenses or programs, extensions. It's really just using our existing GIS of like tables, polygons, and things like that. Cool, so now to touch on some of the accomplishments we've had with the Cityworks side of things, it's really helped us make sure that we're properly maintaining all of our critical assets and that none of them are like slipping through the cracks or that we're able to not forget about any. This has really helped us in regards to compliance, and it makes it a lot easier to prove that we've done like required and necessary things for various assets that we need to. Also, cover your assets. This is sort of related to the one above, but again, if something goes wrong or there's an accident that has, Cityworks has incredibly enhanced our ability to pull up the digital records of what we've been doing and prove that due diligence or prove that we did the due diligence right. So it's not just used in a defensive manner. Obviously, we've started to convert what we're already doing into Cityworks, and we're trying to really like whittle down the process and determine if what we're doing actually makes sense, right? And yeah, just trying to use Cityworks as a tool to help us reflect on what we're doing and determine like what is the actual best practice for maintaining stuff, the assets and everything. All right, so it wouldn't be a good presentation without a few more dashboards here. And yeah, we've been able to turn some of the work activities into dashboards that the operators get to see. And I think it's been really valuable having some tangible or visual like representation or manifestation of their work. And it visually kind of can show their progress as well as it shows them that their efforts like with Cityworks and with GIS, the work they're doing into these systems like have a tangible effect, and that it's not just that it's doing something and going somewhere, and not just doing it for the sake of doing it, but that they have an impact in like the program and the system. And it can be visually rewarding to see and track progress over the course of a year or something of all the work you've done. All right, so where are we going with the vertical assets? I sort of mentioned this before, but we are trying to use Cityworks to integrate Cityworks into some form of a financial model to help us, decide what assets we need to replace and when, and also kind of how we need to take care of that's the capital improvement plan, and then how we take care of our assets, and that's like the asset management plan. We are also building a new water treatment plant, which is bigger than the other two treatment plants, and there's a ton of rooms, and we need to add several more tables, system tables and object tables to adequately capture all of the assets of this new plant. So thank you all very much. I was really happy again to be here and talk about what Park City is doing and what we're doing with vertical assets. So thank you very much, and I'm going to pass it back to Doug.
Awesome. Thanks, Scott, and thanks, Phil. I think everybody will agree that that's been a really good overview and also a nice deep dive into what Park City in Utah has been able to achieve. What we're going to do now is we'll kick off our discussion with the panel, and we'll actually go through some questions. But there's still more time to put questions in as well. And also, if you're interested in reaching out to hear more, and happy to reach out and book a consultation, we've popped a QR code on the screen that you can click on and send through your details. I think everybody's familiar with QR codes these days because of the COVID environments. So I just wanted to recap a couple of things. I think the presentation from Phil was fantastic because it actually provided us a lot of good understanding of the capability of Cityworks, but I think there's also a lot more that we can explore, particularly in the works management space within the Australian environment. And also from Scott, which I was fascinated with because it's a beautiful part of the world there, and it's always interesting to see how places like that are managed. It doesn't matter the size of the organisation. There's always a lot of complexity, and being able to leverage two platforms that work well together helps you to manage that complexity. And I saw the ability of the dashboards to help communicate, help the people in the business see more, and actually understand what's going on to help improve the asset management, the safety within the organisation, the compliance, and also look at the strategic planning for the future as well. So what I want to do is we'll kick off the discussion with a quick poll. Now, this poll is should be coming up on the screen, is it? Yep, there it is. So if everyone can take a moment from typing up your questions and just answer this poll, that'd be fantastic. Okay, so I think what that shows there is a lot of organisations have moved well along the path in terms of automating and digitising workflows, but there's still a number of organisations that are using paper-based management workflows. So I think the example of Park City will actually help to encourage people along the lines of digitising. I think we've also got a second poll that we might put up as well. And while we're doing that, I'll pose a question that's come through to Phil and Scott. Is if I was looking at implementing a Cityworks solution, what are some of the key considerations I need to look at up front in terms of preparing to move towards the Cityworks and Esri platform?
Well, this is Phil, and I'm sure Scott will agree with this, but I think one of the first considerations is change management, right? And you're doing something different, and how your employees and even management is going to react to that change in your culture.
Yeah, this is Scott here. Yeah, I agree with that a little bit. I'll also add that it is just a really big switch, and at the whole organization from the top to the bottom has to be on board. It can be really hard when one kind of entity, like the administration or another entity, if they have different goals or they're going in different directions, it'll never work. So everyone has to be on the same page as an organization. That's one of the considerations for sure. But that's a really good question, though.
Yeah, and I suppose just following up from that, in terms of change management for the organisation is always a big one. What sort of training or skills improvement do you think are required for getting established as well?
Yeah, I think it is important to have the, especially when you're developing a, a GIS program or an asset management program. It is really important to have kind of like the necessary skills, and that may require hiring additional people. I, for example, was hired to do this sort of thing, and there's no, like, you can have you can hire, other engineering firms to set it up for you. I found that, you know, having the internal abilities to kind of do this is a really solid way of making sure that you can make it and then it really sticks, right? You build it exactly how the organization wants. So kind of having that internal ability is really important. But yeah, I think also, Collector and Cityworks, some of the end user stuff, it's really easy to train kind of people on, especially if you have engineers or if you have, operators. It's really easy to train them on things like Collector or the Cityworks app. It's fairly simple from my experience. So yeah, those are just some things I'll mention.
Okay, and the responses for the second poll are in as well. That the vast majority, around 85%, have spatial information available in the works management workflows. I suppose the thing is, it's great to know, but from a organisational perspective, Scott, when the greater majority of the organisations now being exposed to the spatial information, what sort of benefits has Park City found with that?
Benefits of integrating in a work management system into GIS, the spatial component. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah. Yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it really just we integrating the two. Like, we've had a really, it's the benefit is that it makes it really efficient to kind of find assets and then instantly see the results and say the work activity. You can create these dashboards that can be very powerful, and other sort of reporting metrics. It's not just dashboards, but that's an example. When you can integrate the two, they form a really powerful and efficient kind of workflow. Yeah, I think that was a good example, of navigating through GIS to find the asset, and then you get to select the asset and you get to see all of the work activities and things like in the history of that. And I think I mentioned that, but yeah, that's one really big benefit.
And have you been able to share sort of externally more information out to your the people in your city from the systems, than being able to actually communicate better about what's happening and being planned to happen?
Oh, not. Let's see. So within our department, yes. Within the rest of our organization, like the city, the entire rest of the city, not so much. I think we're starting at a very internal level. But that being said, though, between the different groups, yeah, we've been able to really increase the communication and sharing of the work and projects. One of the really important tools that we've used is the comment section, which it's kind of still of a work order, which you can reference people and you can get it to email, kind of send email notifications from a comment section, which is really powerful tool. And so I guess, yeah, just kind of it has enhanced the inter-office collaboration between our department. Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent. And I suppose for Phil, the application, Cityworks application, so is it fine to be used outside of network connectivity, so in offline modes? And what sort of benefits have you seen with organisations doing that?
Yeah, that's a good question. Cityworks is a web-based system, so connectivity is crucial to be able to update data to the server. But we've specifically designed the Field app, the mobile app for iOS and Android, to be disconnected. So when you do have a connection, it basically downloads a tile map package with all the current data at that moment, and caches it on the device. And then once when you lose connectivity, you're still working on the device as if you've never got off the network. But the application lets you know when you have data there to be basically uploaded, or what if you're offline, connected back to the server. So we do have the capabilities for that, and that's really needed by a lot of organizations, probably most organizations, because you always hit dead zones, right?
Yeah, and particularly in Australia, where you've got such a huge coverage area for some organisations, and when you go down into pits and things like that, you may not have connectivity, but you still need to be able to look at the information when you're out in the field and update that information as well.
Yeah.
And so, from a control room / operations room perspective, and I pose this to Scott or Phil, what sort of insights can you sort of provide in terms of efficiencies, particularly in Australia? We have lots of unfortunate events like cyclones and fires and floods. We haven't had too many pestilence, but just looking at the ability of using the dashboards, using the apps, and displaying the information and sharing to these centres, which are always, when they're stood up, they're in crisis mode. What advantages have you seen from the Cityworks application?
Well, Scott, I don't know if you have any, instances that you guys have leveraged in the emergency management world, but I know we do have a lot of clients that have leveraged Cityworks and web maps. In fact, pulling in, the kind of recovery scenarios of disasters, especially in the southeast United States. They get hurricanes every year, and they deal with the aftermath and the cleanup and recovery of that. And a lot of them use Cityworks to be able to track all those activities as part of the recovery, and how much they're spending and what they're doing, and it helps them with federal funding and reimbursement, things like that, but also to really make the recovery process more efficient.
Yeah, I will say that, like, in my position, I don't really deal with any emergency management kind of situations. I mean, so when there are emergencies or incidents, where we interact with Cityworks is really like, coming back through the system, pulling up the work history of any, assets involved or whatever. But but just, the ability to create dashboards is pretty important. And I know, like, through the COVID-19 crisis, like, some of those dashboards provided incredible information that I was kind of following. And I have seen in Salt Lake County, which is kind of a county nearby, they created several different dashboards kind of on the fly, for various things. I think it was related to like a voting, distribution centers or something, but they were able to create these dashboards that were quick. You could email them out to anyone, like it could be public facing or internal, but it's just a super quick way to kind of communicate super important information. So that's my kind of experience with that.
Okay, we've got time for a few more questions. If anybody wants to type into the questions box and send through. I think for Scott, a quick question from myself, actually, for interest's sake. What was the timeline in terms of implementation for yourselves to get Cityworks in place and integrated with the Esri GIS?
Yeah. Man, that's a good question. They started Cityworks a little bit before I was there, but when I showed up and I was able to kind of craft the position, I would say it's been we're on a 5-year plan, and I say we're about on year three, maybe 3.5. And so I say we've had some really good success so far. We still have a long ways to go though, but You know, it's sort of funny because when you're looking at the end, you know, from the beginning, you're like, oh, that doesn't seem so bad. But then when going through the weeds of it, you know, it's actually a much more difficult process than I initially kind of thought. But yeah, I would say we're about 3.5 years into this. Yeah.
And I suppose that'd be because it's a full business sort of change where you're changing workflows for other areas of the business. It's not just implementing the technology; it's the change management, the training, and those sorts of things as well. So all good things take time.
Phil said a little while ago, like how there's a cultural change, and it's funny because my boss used that as well. He's like, hey, this is not just a kind of how we're doing it. This is like it has to be a big cultural change of how we as an organization are like running and doing things. So yeah, it can take a lot of time, but yeah, we're making some great progress.
Yeah, and sort of in line with that question that has also just come in. This is more for Phil. Is Cityworks aligned with the new Esri utility model?
Yes, indeed we are. Yeah.
Yeah, I suppose just to reiterate as well, I think something early on in your presentation, Phil, Cityworks is actually a platinum sponsor of platinum partner with Esri. So, for those on the call, platinum partners work very, very closely with Esri in the development of the applications that integrate, and they're at the forefront of where things are going from an Esri perspective to support their platform as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and because of that relationship, we really make great strides to make sure that we're in lockstep with Esri's version and releases as well.
Yeah, and it's and I think with that, and that's part of the webinar series and discussions. It's well worth it for those on the call to just keep up to date with your local Esri account managers and things in terms of progress in versions, updates, and capability on the Esri platform and with Cityworks, because working together, there's a huge amount of capability that you can leverage through that. Scott, maybe from your perspective, is there a process or a different time to use Collector in the business, or move to the Cityworks mobile, or is it close to the same?
So my kind of, I guess my understanding of this is that, Collector is really for the GIS side of it. It's really for, updating like geometry and some attribute stuff for the GIS, and the Cityworks mobile, you can update attributes, say like a last date inspected field that can be updated from a inspection. But typically the operators in our kind of in Park City's example, we use the mobile Cityworks mobile to create and complete work orders and inspections in the field. But we use we use Collector, to update the GIS. So that's kind of the kind of splits between those two lines. I don't know if Phil, if you know if the Cityworks mobile can update things like geometry, if in your from like a GIS services or anything like that. But my understanding is that it can't. But
yeah, that's correct, Scott. It can't. We leave that up to the Esri side of things. So Collector, we do have. We actually have an app link to Collector. So if you're using Cityworks mobile in the field and want to, say, find an asset that's not GIS and want to update it, we have a link that can launch Collector right through our mobile app.
Okay, yeah, and that's good to know that it's very much around the best use of the technology capability for the right job, and but being able to actually get all the data together so you can display it and use it across the business. But that that concludes today's session, and I'd really like to thank Scott and Phil for joining us. It's very late in the evening in the States at the moment, and I think that we've had a really, really good view of the Cityworks solution and how it's actually been implemented for Park City and helping out the city there too. But thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you all have a great day, and we'll see you all soon.